All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Good morning. It is the Mark Thompson Show. Mark is off today and tomorrow and Wednesday, but Tony and I are here and ready to keep the show rolling. Hi, Tony.
Hey.
How was the weekend?
Mostly work. Honestly, mostly work.
It's always mostly work with you.
I know.
You know, and it's funny, don't take this the wrong way, but I'm in the shower last night and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if Tony ever takes a day off. Not that I was thinking about you in the shower. I'm not saying like that's weird, but I was just thinking like how many jobs you have, right? And how
gotta do what I gotta do right now. I mean, I find time still, like I got the new Mario game, which is pretty good and stuff like that.
Is there ever a day where you don't have any job to do?
No.
No,
No,
never a day.
I've worked myself into a pretty good corner right now. It's like,
Yeah.
I gotta work a lot now.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I'm glad you're here with me today. You're here with me again tomorrow. So we're going to be doing this. Some great things coming up on the Mark Thompson Show. Of course, Mark is back east with his parents. Courtney off today as well. But I have Chris Merrill on the way in. So we'll talk politics with Chris Merrill, which is always really funny. And also Gary Dietrich. Gary Dietrich is also a political analyst. We haven't talked to him for a while. So I got him to come on the show today as well. And then it's Animal Day. So we'll talk to Karen Dawn. We've got a Stories from the Sky plan for you. It's going to be a great Mark Thompson show. So I'm glad that you're here along for the ride with us. Thank you very much for all the ways you support the Mark Thompson Show. And that is via Patreon and PayPal. We know that we have some ongoing supporters and we couldn't be more grateful. The super stickers are live and ready to roll. So thank you for that. The show's crowdfunded. So you can see themarkthompsonshow.com is our website. Scrolling there at the bottom. Yeah, themarkthompsonshow.com. And you can always check out the website, see what you if anything floats your boat there. Also, themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com is the way to email us. I saw that on the screen there as well.
There you go. Found it.
All right. So, and I should get some business out of the way and ask you for free to please click the like button and please click the subscribe button because it makes a big difference to us as well. So click like and subscribe, as they say. I saw this poll over the weekend. I don't know if you saw this, and we'll talk to Chris Merrill about it, and we'll talk to Gary Dietrich about it as well. And I don't know how much stock you guys put in polls, but it's just flabbergasting to me that this could be the way that we're going. The headline reads, Trump leads Biden in 4 key swing states. I also read 5, according to a new poll. Man, that Trump holds the edge over Biden in a series of hypothetical matchups among registered voters in 4 key swing states. That's according to polling from the New York Times and Siena College. In Nevada, a state Biden narrowly carried in the 2020 election, Trump has 52% support to Biden's 41%. That's a pretty big gap. Trump also tops Biden in Georgia, right? That state that was pretty critical to the whole election scandal. 49% Trump to Biden's 43%. Trump leading Biden in Arizona, 49% to 44%. In Michigan, Trump holding a 5-point lead, 48 to 43% over Biden. Now, there's a margin of error between 4.4 and 4.8 points. So that takes care of most of it. But when I read that and I see everything happening, with the trials and the, testimony today and everything else, I think, how can people still be supporting Trump? I'm still back in the confusion land. I know people will say, well, don't put a lot of stock in polls right now, right? And who are they asking? The people that are home alone answering the phone in the middle of the day are probably retired and older and therefore probably on the conservative end of the spectrum. And that it really doesn't translate into who's going out to the polls to vote. I get all that. But that anybody could be swayed, or that we could even have a poll that looks like this. I don't care who you are in the middle of the day, whether you're old or young or whomever. If you love democracy, how could you possibly love Trump? Leading in 4 key swing states. And when I read that, he's ahead here, he's ahead there, he's ahead here. I have this picture of it on election night playing out, and the same feeling that I had when Trump was first elected. I don't care whether you like Hillary Clinton or not, but that we had a Trump elected, granted, that's before most of us knew exactly what that meant. But that's really frightening to me. You know, I know people who are already talking about, if he wins, I'm going to leave the country. We saw a lot of people say that last time, and I don't know how many people actually left. But this time around, now that we know what we're getting, I could see it checking out. I don't know. And here's the thing, now that we know what we're getting, right? Because there's another story, and this one was from the Washington Post. I don't know if you guys saw this story, but it says Trump and allies plot revenge and Justice Department control in a second term. So basically, the gist of it is that Donald Trump, allegedly, according to the Washington Post, has already been in discussions with his supporters over how they're going to exact revenge from anyone and everyone who spoke out against him and was disloyal. That's people like General Kelly, former Attorney General William Barr, who's been critical as of late, ex-attorney Ty Cobb, former Chiefs of Staff Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Milley, General Milley, anybody who spoke out against him, anybody exacting revenge, and dropping kind of the buffer between the Department of Justice and the White House. So instead of they're doing what they do over here and the president is doing what the president does in the White House over here, making them come together and work in tandem. This, again, according to the Washington Post, right? And that's frightening, very frightening. The constitutional law professor at the University of Virginia, name is Sakrishna Prakash, says it would resemble a banana republic if people came into office and started going after their opponents willy-nilly. It's hardly something that we should aspire to. There apparently is an unofficially outsourced partnership of right-wing think tanks in Washington, D.C. They're called Project 2025. And they are 2024. Project 2025. The group is developing a plan to include a draft executive orders that would deploy the militarily domestically under the Insurrection Act. The law was last updated in 1871. It authorizes the president to deploy the military for domestic law enforcement. So basically, if there were protests, if he was elected, he would declare martial law? Is that what we're seeing? Yeah, deploy the militarily domestically under the Insurrection Act. I don't even know. I can't. Could this be just this giant scare tactic from the left? Maybe. Is this for real? Washington Post. It's a trusted source for me. I don't know about for you guys. And could we see somebody like Trump coming out and having a revenge plan? Absolutely. He's an angry fella, right? And the worst thing to him is if you're disloyal to him. So it goes to character that that this would be true, but it's frightening, and I hope it's not true, right? I just, wow. Meanwhile, Trumpity Trump is on the stand today, and it's not going very well. He is taking the stand in the New York civil fraud trial. And the minute he took the stand, it was he and the judge back and forth. Tell me this, you guys. If you knew the judge was the person deciding your case, if you knew that your future, the future of your business, the future of your money and your wealth was in the hands of this person next to you, are you not nice to the person, pleasant, I don't know, civil, at least, at the very least, if not trying to sway them to your favor? Because that's not what Trump is doing. He's goading the judge. This is the person who's deciding, what the penalty is. The judge already decided there's fraud here. So now it's, do you get to keep your big New York City buildings, or do you get to retain control of your company, or do you have to pay a $100 million fine or a $200 million fine, whatever it may be? I'm just thinking maybe it might behoove Trump to be a little nicer to this person. But take the stand he did. They broke for lunch. When he left for lunch, the reporters were clamoring outside the courtroom, wanting information, and Trump just did this. Like, I'm under a gag order and I cannot speak to you. As if that's ever stopped him before. I don't know. And then do we want a former president do we want a current president that is involved in so many legal cases? Do we want, I don't know about you, maybe you've been involved in one legal case, maybe two legal cases in your life. You think about how many legal cases Trump's been involved in, how many times he's been accused of fraud. I mean, my memory only goes back as far as Trump University, right? But since then, there have been a lot of different cases. I don't know. I want my president, and I know people have different thoughts about this, right? Some people want a president they could go drinking beer with. Some people want a president that's personable and relatable to them. I want my president to be the smartest person in the room. I want the president of the United States to be that kind of person who always moves ahead, right? Who's incredibly bright. And above it all, I want them to be the best of the best. And maybe that's pie in the sky thinking, but I don't want them to be the person involved in a gajillion lawsuits, but bickering with the judge on the stand. That is incredibly non-presidential. What's going on, Tony? Oh, you're muted, my friend. I still can't hear you. What'd you say?
Go. You should be right now. I said I have a little bit of. You want to hear CNN recounting what Trump did between the lawyer?
Yeah, let's watch it.
This is getting pretty heated. The judge asking Trump's lawyer, quote, "Can you control your client? This is not a political rally." This coming from our colleagues who are inside the courtroom watching this live. The judge forcing Trump's lawyer, Chris Kise, to talk to the former president. The former president, we're reading here, apparently waved his arms at any suggestion of taking a 10-minute break. He is sitting back in his chair, we're told, just pursing his lips in that sort of classic Trump smile. Trump's lawyer is assuring the judge that their client, quote, understands the rules. The judge shot back and said, well, he doesn't abide by them. Now, apparently, they're back into questioning, but this is getting pretty heated. If there was any question about whether the former president could remain composed on the stand, refrain from attacking prosecutors, the judge, well, it's pretty clear. He and the judge sort of getting into it here.
There you go.
Yeah. And that's not a surprise, really. Is it a surprise to anybody that it would go this way? The quote is, he's turning this into the Trump show, according to a source in the courtroom, describing what they see as messaging success around today's testimony. That he's turning it into the Trump show is how he's winning. So this is what people want to see from him, right? He's not taking this laying down. He's swinging and fighting and being belligerent and whatever else. He's already started, Trump, using the judge's words to continue to paint this whole thing as election interference. He's still posting on Truth Social. Trump posting a quote from the judge over a picture of him. And the quote says, "No, I'm not here to hear what President Trump has to say." I mean, what a circus. What a three-ring circus. And I don't know if they're going to get what they need from him as far as this case. Yeah, there's a lot at stake here. I mean, he could lose a lot of money. Maybe he already knows that, and maybe he doesn't care, so he might as well use it for what he can, which is a campaign platform. That's how he sucks the money back out. It's like publicity you don't have to pay for, right? Yes, Harry, indeed. What a bunch of bullshills, indeed. Spencer says, watch those Trump depositions. He's all over the place spewing nonsense. Why can't everybody be like you, Spencer? I just don't understand. Mindy says, it's so boring. Nothing is done about Trump. Naturally, it's the Trump show. It's what Trump does. And right, Mindy, and no one expects anything differently, right? I'm surprised he's not already in a holding cell for contempt of court. DJD has been in legal issues since the 90s. Donald Trump, yes. Atlantic City, 80s, 70s, from the 90s, filed bankruptcy several times. It's true. Yeah, as far back as you've been paying attention, that's as far back as his legal troubles start. Wild. Yeah. Julie wants him to be charged with contempt, or says he may be. Keep at it. Debbie says, I want my president to know what they don't know. Surround themselves with smart, decent advisors. I want them to be sane with at least some modicum of humanity. Absolutely. I want them to know before they send our young people, our sons and daughters, off to fight for this country, that they're not doing it for some random reason, right? That it's incredibly important. We haven't had that in a long time. Thank you for your comments. Put Trump in jail. It's funny. No matter how much we want it, I just don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, a girl can dream, but that's the way it is. But yeah, I guess no one should have expected anything differently than Trump going nuts in the courtroom today. But that's what we have. Speaking of other things American, there's a case that's hit the Supreme Court, and it's about gun rights. The man at the center of it, his name is Zaki Rahimi. He is now, it turns out, the guy that wants his guns, allegedly shot guns in public at least 6 times over a 3-month period, 3 times directly at people, once into a house, twice into the air. And all of those alleged shootings happened while this man was under a protective order for domestic violence that prohibited him from possessing firearms. What? This apparently is the person that is taking a gun case to the Supreme Court to settle the question of whether the Constitution allows authorities to strip a domestic abuser's gun rights on the basis of a civil order. This is a guy I don't want having a gun. I don't know about you guys. It's interesting that the question seems more important than the defendant in this case, right? The events, though, that happened with this man, I think, are key because he's now in the national spotlight. And before the gun rights people picked him to be the person to say whether or not red flag laws or domestic violence red flag laws should be legal, maybe they could have picked a more sympathetic character. Here's something crazy. There is this is, as Mark says, the United States of guns. We should probably save it till Friday, but no, we're moving forward with it now. There is a Florida roofing company giving away, if you buy a new roof, you get a free turkey, and then you get an AR-15. It's all part of the Thanksgiving special. A turkey and an AR-15. Roof EZ out of Cape Coral, Florida. They've got a Thanksgiving special. The purchase of a roof during the month of November gets you a free frozen turkey and a free AR-15 semi-automatic rifle. The turkey will, they say, this is the president of Roof EZ. The turkey will get you all sitting at the table so you can spend time together. The roof will protect your home, and the AR-15 will protect your family. It's a package deal the president of Roof EZ thought couldn't be any better for his customers this Thanksgiving. I actually saw this idea because a company did it in Alabama. He said, I figured, hey, we're in Florida. It's the most Florida thing you can do. Let's do it. Everybody needs an AR-15, he said. The world's a crazy place right now, and they can get a roof and an AR-15 for protection on both ends. Why not? And to promote gun safety, everyone needs to know how to handle a gun safely. giving away AR-15s. Didn't we just have a horrible shooting in Maine? I think over the weekend there was another mass shooting in the South. But we're giving away AR-15s and a frozen turkey for Thanksgiving. So thankful for that. It makes me so sad. We have done nothing. We have prepared not one single bit at all. Hi, Tony.
I found the ad.
Oh, let's have it. Oh, is it just a picture?
Yeah, it's just the November sale.
November sale. Free AR-15 and turkey with the purchase of a brand new roof. Look at the gun and the turkey at the bottom. Like the graphic. Seriously, though. Seriously. They're using a local arms dealer called Shoot Center in Cape Coral to facilitate their promotion. You do have to go through a background check. You can't have any felonies. Once you pass your background check, you can go pick up your gun in 3 days. And if you don't want the gun, they'll give you an extra $500 off your roof, because that's how much the AR-15 is worth. And they say, sadly, that this marketing tactic is actually working for them. They say, we've already got 5 to 8 customers ready to go that took advantage of this. I just, how is this legal? How is this acceptable morally? Am I just too libby-lib, I guess? I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever that this is what we're doing. That this is what's acceptable. Get a frozen turkey and an AR-15 with a purchase of a new roof. Wow. Well, something else in America. We have Mike Johnson, who is the Speaker of the House now. He is, I'm not making it up either. I swear you, I talked to Chris Merrill about this when he comes in, but let me set the story up for you. Speaker Mike Johnson admits that he and his son monitor each other's porn intake. Because, they don't want to watch too much porn. By the way, this is the guy who tried to legislate that you can't have homosexual sex. So he's telling other people what they can and can't do in the bedroom. I know. Thank you, Rolling Stone. I'm not making it up, right? During a conversation on the war on technology at Benton, Louisiana's Cypress Baptist Church. It's an old video unearthed last week. The Louisiana representative talked about how he installed accountability software called Covenant Eyes on his devices in order to abstain from internet porn and other unsavory websites. You need parental software. The Covenant Eyes. You need the God software in order to tell you not to watch the porn. You can't morally make the decision on your own that either, yes, you like the porn or no, you don't like the porn. The Covenant Eyes software scans all the activity on your phone, on your devices, on your laptop, what have you. They do all of it. And then it sends a report of your accountability to your partner. And he said his accountability partner right now was at that time his 17-year-old son. So he and I get a report about all the things that are on our phones, all of our devices once a week. If anything objectionable comes up, your accountability partner gets an immediate notice. And I'm proud to tell you, he said, my son has got a clean slate. Well, first of all, your 17-year-old son, who now has the Covenant Eyes on his phone, isn't using his phone to watch something that you're going to get, chastise him for, or tell him, that God is sending him straight to hell for watching. Seriously. What happened to being a grown-up with your own ability to say, no, I'm not doing this? I just don't. Wow. It's like a little kid. Champagne wants to know, would I be okay if porn was given away instead of an AR-15? I'm really not good with any of it, to be honest. Why don't you just give me 20% off the roof and we'll call it good, right? So crazy. People are crazy. Eric says, even if you have someone to hold you accountable instead of holding yourself accountable, maybe you shouldn't be 2 heartbeats away from the presidency. Thank you. The most sane, rational, logical thing I've seen all day. That's right. If you need covenant eyes to tell you that you shouldn't watch porn, then yes, you should not be 2 heartbeats away from the presidency. It is the craziest, wild ass thing I've seen. And we just saw that they're giving away frozen turkeys and AR-15s if you buy a new roof in Florida. So honestly, this is crazy. I have to get Chris Merrill in here because I really do need him to comment on this story. I must. You know him from KGO Radio. He was a former fill-in talk show host there. You'll hear him hosting shows around the nation, and he's this funniest guy. I love him. He always will say what you're thinking, but in a much better way. It's Chris Merrill, everybody.
No, that's
Yay. Hi.
Appreciate that. That's good.
So we're talking about this story about Speaker Mike Johnson.
Yeah.
And there's this video that
Great moral leader, Mike Johnson.
Great moral leader. You know, he of the no one should have gay sex and I'm going to legislate it or try to, right? Yeah. Apparently this old video resurfaces, and this is a story out of Rolling Stone, that he speaks to the Cypress Baptist Church, and he tells them that he's installed accountability software on his phone and his son's phone called Covenant Eyes. So that if you do anything like watch porn or do anything unsavory, it immediately tells your accountability partner, which back then was his 17-year-old son.
Yeah.
So whether you watch porn or gambling, whatever you set it up to say is wrong. And Eric, one of our listeners, viewers, was making the argument, you know, if you don't have your own strength of character to say, if I don't want to watch porn, I'm not going to watch porn. If you need accountability software on your phone, maybe you shouldn't be 2 heartbeats away from the presidency, because I want someone who's a little stronger than I need software to make sure that I don't do this.
What is the problem with watching porn? I don't.
Well, apparently if you're Mike Johnson, it goes against the Baptist conventions or the religious moral whatever. I don't know what's wrong with it, to be honest.
How does the software work? Because my understanding was it would tell his son if he was watching porn, and then it would tell him if his son was watching porn.
That's right.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah. So you're. Oh, I'm hearing we double back for some reason. But so you're. I think Tony fixed it. So yes.
I fixed it.
Thank you. So you're accountable to that other person. So and maybe he did it more so if his son was watching porn, he'd know right away, under the guise of, we're going to make this deal together, whatever. But it just seems so juvenile. Like, why?
Well, maybe we're looking at this the wrong way. So listen, I've raised 3 teenagers, right?
Right.
And I kind of wish I had known about this software beforehand, because I could have then given my son some pointers. Maybe directed him towards some porn that he hadn't encountered before, and opened his eyes. And likewise, maybe, you know, as a young man, he could have turned me on to what his generation thinks is hot. Instead, I'm just left with, you know, bushy women doing just missionary position. And these are not the sorts of things that necessarily are my deal, but that's kind of what I thought I had to go to. So I kind of wish that I had, you know, opened my mind a little bit, and maybe he could have helped me do that. Instead, I had to do it the old-fashioned way and just surf the internet myself.
So use Covenant Eyes as a porn radar
training tool. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Crazy.
Well, the family that humps together stays together, and I think that's an important aspect here. Probably what Mike Johnson is clicked in on too. I love that his name is Mike Johnson, and he's concerned about porn. That's a magnificent thing.
Seems to be concerned about all things that are related to sex, and it's one of. I was talking about this story with Nikki Maduro earlier. This man who was the mayor of a small town, I want to say Alabama. And he was a preacher at a local Baptist church. And someone has a picture of him cross-dressing, right? Yeah. And so they bring it out and they publish it and they, you know, spread it around. And the next thing you know, this guy's killed himself.
Right.
It's one of these things where, and I don't know if it's the same thing with Mike Johnson and all, but it just smacks of similarity to me, where me think thou doth protest too much, where you
Right.
have this extreme hatred of something. Why
Yeah.
are you so concerned about it? Like, why does that occupy your thoughts and your time? Unless you have some type of deep-seated need for it and you hate yourself for it, and so you're going to hate on everyone else who does it too.
Yeah, that's why I brought up Larry Craig. Remember that was the guy from Idaho that was he was all family values and everything, and then he was toe tapping in the bathroom in Minneapolis at the airport. And then it was just a wide stance, and I would only reach my hand under there because I wanted some toilet paper. It's just totally normal. It's what we all do.
Yeah.
And what you said, of course, rings true. The other thing that I would say too is that perhaps Johnson is, and we're using him as an example. I mean, I think we're talking about a deeper psychological issue beyond just one individual, and maybe he is just uber religious and believes this is the only way they're going to fix America, whatever. But it does feel like maybe there's some repressed sexuality, and that by repressing other sexualities, you both level the playing field and you give yourself an excuse to go seek out that behavior so that you can witness it for yourself and live vicariously through other people's sin, so to speak. Then of course there's the practical side of the whole thing that confuses me, and that is what happened to private browsers. I mean, it doesn't seem like this would be very difficult to overcome. I mean, he says, oh, now my son will know if I'm looking at porn. Well, don't you have another computer or another cell phone? I mean, don't we all have burner phones for our porn so that our spouses don't find out? Listen, Kim, I talked to Chris. He's got 3 burners based on whatever mood he's in, with bookmarks on all of them. So yeah, I mean, realistically speaking, to think that a 17-year-old who knows that there's software on there that dad's going to find out is only using that device,
right? Silly.
Cool. And to think that this guy is like, well, I'm accountable to my son. Sure you are. Okay, well, Cricket Wireless says you're not, okay? Because that's real easy to go get. Yeah.
Of course, today is the Trump testimony going on at the New York civil fraud trial. And already, like, the first thing, Trump hits the stand and it's a back and forth with the judge, right?
Yes.
A judge, by the way, which holds in his hand the future of the Trump organization and how much of a fine that Trump has to pay, and how, whether they retain control of the business, all these things. And Trump comes out swinging. Do you think this is, he knows he's going to lose it, so he's just using it as a campaign opportunity and is being combative on purpose? Or is just this the way he is and there's really no tamping it down?
Can he answer me both?
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is the persona that he's found has been very successful. And I don't know if he even knows who the real Trump is, because he's sort of a caricature of himself.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we see major celebrities kind of do that, especially in the political realm. I once said that about Sheriff Joe Arpaio when I was working in Phoenix, and he called the station to complain about me, which was great. There's nothing like getting under the skin of the officials themselves. Yeah, I think in Trump's case, he knows he's screwed, and so he's gonna get all of the what we call earned advertising in the business, which is basically news coverage. He's gonna get as much as he possibly can. And listen, he's good at it. You know, you can't blame him for it. He's good at it. So it might cost him $250 million and his business in New York. But my God, if he becomes the president, maybe he makes all that back, and maybe his business expands elsewhere outside the state of New York. And this ends up being a good thing for him. I did think it was interesting to see the reporting following, like, Caitlin Collins there at CNN. She's talking about, this is what's being said, and here's what the judge said, and the judge is telling the attorney, Trump's attorney, can you get your client under control, this sort of thing. Headline on Fox News is gloves off. Trump and judge lock horns as verbal showdown takes center stage during rare testimony. And to your point about, is this just the way he is? I mean, this is, again, the persona that he's projecting. And it's the persona that others are lifting up to say, look, he's a powerful guy. He's a strong person. And if you elect him, he's going to give you what you want, and he's going to fight for you. And listen, you're scared because there are a lot of brown people coming across the border, and that's scary. And there are a lot of atheists who are trying to take away your Jesus, and that's scary. But look, here's a strong guy. And even when they come at him, he doesn't give up. He's a fighter, and he's going to fight for you. So, yeah, I think this is all part and parcel with the Trump phenomenon today. I'm just stunned. Did you ever think there'd be a day in America that we saw somebody who had 91 felony counts against him, who would be not only leading the party, but crushing it in the polls against everybody else?
Yeah, let's talk about those polls, because it is Trump leaping past Biden in key swing states. We're talking Nevada, we're talking Michigan, we're talking Arizona, and by quite a wide margin in some of these cases. And so we've got at least 4 or 5 swing states where in a hypothetical matchup between Trump and Biden, Trump is ahead.
Yeah.
What?
He loves Nevada.
Nevada.
Right.
Nevada.
Right. Loves that. Yeah.
I mean, I know when you see polls like this, sometimes, that I've heard that, well, the people that answer the phone during the middle of the day are often conservative. It's not representative of who's really going to the polls. But also when we've seen polls like this, what happens in the presidential race is often it's very tight and one of these too close to call moments. Is it too early for people that are like, whoa, what is Trump even doing close to the presidency again to be concerned? Or is this just a poll, we let it go?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't ignore it, but I also wouldn't put a whole lot of stock into it. We're 364 days away from the election, so I wouldn't get too wound up. And an awful lot could happen between now and then, and that goes for both sides. Let's remember that one of the big complaints the Democrats have about Biden is that he's old, but right
so is Trump. Like he's not a spring chicken. They're 3 years apart or something.
Yeah, that's the point I'm getting to is that they are both old. And either one of them could have an old man affliction like a heart attack between now and then. I mean, we saw what happened with Bernie Sanders last go around. So I don't get too wound up about it right now, but I do think that, and there's more to that poll too, by the way, and I'll explain in a moment if I can just take over your show. That it should be a moment that the Democrats realize is showing some vulnerability right now. And I think that the insiders on the left have known this for a very long time. That despite a lot of positive economic indicators, Main Street still says, listen, I'm paying too much for a gallon of milk and a dozen eggs, and that's Biden's fault. And they're gonna continue to hold him responsible. The buck stops here, so to speak. The other thing that I thought was interesting about that poll is that it said that Trump would get hammered by a general Democrat. In other words, an unnamed Democrat. Now, these things are always very dangerous because if you attach a name, it shifts things. Mm-hmm. So what it's basically saying is, do you believe in sort of the progressive message or Trump, right? But if you flip that and you were to say, let's say it's Biden running against a generic Republican, Biden really gets slammed. If you were to say Nikki Haley versus Joe Biden, she crushes him in these swing states. And so it's not just a Democratic Party problem that their front runner is not an ideal candidate. The Republicans also have a big issue with. It's not just the never Trumps in the GOP. It's the moderates who are going, listen, I just can't. I'm not crazy about what Biden's doing. And Fox keeps telling me that the border is wide open and everything else. But yeah, I'm not real crazy about a guy who's got 91 felony counts against him being the leader either. 4 years ago wasn't long enough for me to forget what it was like. Although there seems to be sort of a muddied memory of what goes on. So we have to be careful when we look at those sort of generic tests. But I've said this for a long time. In fact, I think I said it with you one time, Kim, when you were on with Nikki. And that is that we're getting closer and closer to me being dead wrong on this. But I still think that Gavin Newsom is going to be the candidate in 2024 for the Democratic Party.
Really? I don't know. He says no. He says no. I'm not doing it. And he can't step on Kamala Harris. She would have to back down and say, I don't want to run. And she's not going to do that.
A lot can happen between now and November of next year. Now, where things get a little bit tricky is that we're nearing the end of the filing deadline to appear in, I think, 7 states for primaries and caucuses. So if it is going to be Newsom, it's going to have to be one of those brokered convention situations, unless he files here, real late. Bill Maher had a segment last week where he was ripping on Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer for running shadow campaigns. And I think there's some validity to that. One of the things Newsom is up against is being a governor of what is probably the bluest state in the nation, certainly one of the bluest states, if we want to consider, Massachusetts and New York and things like that, but certainly the most populous state. And Newsom decides he's going to go to China and do some
and Israel, right?
And then then he makes a swing through Israel, and you go, what's the governor of California have any business doing talking with the Bibi and the others there. Is he trying to broker peace in the Middle East? Is his springboard into the election? I mean, maybe. I definitely think he's trying to raise his profile. He also vetoed a number of bills that were pretty overwhelmingly passed by the legislature in Sacramento, and he vetoed those things. And he leaned back on saying, well, it's not in the budget, whether it's paying the striking workers for unemployment. He said, well, it's not in the budget. Listen, the EDD is $20 billion in the hole. It's just not in the budget, guys. We just can't do it. But that, if he didn't have aspirations beyond this, would he have worried about that so much? I don't think so. I think he would have found the money somewhere. Even if he had just done some accounting tricks to say, listen, fraud is the reason that it's $20 billion in the hole. We're gonna shore up.
Uh-oh, you're frozen in time, my friend. Well, hopefully it cycles back, Tony, and we'll get our Chris Merrill back. Oh, I saw. Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're frozen in time. It was very, very cute.
Yeah, well,
we should wager. We should do a wager.
Okay.
A good thing we don't have Covenant eyes on our phone, because I don't know. I think he's truthful and serious, even though his actions don't support that he's not going to run, and that he wouldn't take it from Kamala, because they're friends, right? They're colleagues and friends, and I don't know if they'd backstab each other to get to the presidency like that.
Well, there could be a backroom deal too. We don't know.
Yeah.
Even her numbers in that latest poll show that she's only one point better than Biden against Trump. So, it may be one of those deals where they go, listen, Kamala, we know you think you're next in line, but we got to try to, there's going to be no line if we don't win.
It's true. Just looking at what's happening on the stand, and I know this story came from HuffPo, because we don't have, cameras in the courtroom for live coverage, but they say that Trump actually on the stand admitted to adjusting property valuations. And here's the back and forth. The Assistant Attorney General, Kevin Wallace, says, did you ever think the values were off in your statement of financial condition? And Trump responded, yes, on occasion, both high and low. Probably, I said, I thought it was too high. I don't know if that's too high anymore, because I'm seeing things sold at numbers that are very high. I was very busy in the White House. My threshold was China, Russia, and keeping our country safe. Just for the record, Wallace said, you weren't president in 2021? No, I wasn't. It's so, this back and forth is wild. And it's, it is really a campaign speech and less of a defense. So it almost like it doesn't matter what he says. As you said, as long as he's the fighter and comes out swinging, as long as he's belligerent and angry, it's all going to be okay.
I mean, he's really got that angry grandpa thing down, doesn't he?
Yeah. I don't mean to keep coming back to it, but it's happening as we speak, and it's just, it's really interesting. We've got something happening in California where we're going to start treating the mentally ill that are on our streets. This is a story. It's kind of the Governor Gavin Newsom's care court situation, right? The highest, let's see, it's called Proposition 1. Governor Gavin Newsom posting this ad on social media where he says mental health has to be addressed differently and the state has to lead the way. He says he feels the system is broken with too many people living on the streets, and this will help the most vulnerable get out of tents and get into the care they need. California voters get their say when Prop 1 appears on the March ballot. This is a way to get, I guess, force people into some type of care. But at the same time as he's saying this, another story popped out. We know at least 1/3 of the nation's homeless vets are in California. So a lot of people living on the street have served our country.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I would argue that we owe them more than we're giving them,
Yeah, well, obviously. I mean, that's a good saying. For Newsom, though, isn't this another opportunity to say, look, I'm the guy that's attacking the mental health crisis, and look, if the big concern with all these mass shootings is mental health, then we're going to tackle it head on, and we're actually doing something about it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, hey, look at me. I'm the one who's fixing things. So, again, I think there's probably some genuine concern here, and he's trying to be a leader, but I also think he's setting himself up for political runs. I don't see the downside for Newsom in pushing this.
I don't know if the rest of the country is going to go for Newsom. I mean, when he ran for governor, those ads were, whether you like it or not, right?
Yeah.
Where, I mean, and so the rest of the country is going to see that and going to think, wow, this is liberal at its extreme. And I don't know if that plays for middle America. I don't know if Newsom can pull it off.
Okay, so let's flip the script. And what we just talked about with Trump is he's showing strength and he's going to fight for what you believe in. And if you've got progressive America and you go, listen, I got to fight, and whether you like it or not, we're going to help these homeless veterans, right?
Yeah.
And he's going to start pushing it. I'm the powerful guy who's going to fight for what you need to have. And there's a lot of scary things coming from the fascists on the right, and they all want to put guns in the Sunday schools, and we're going to fix that, right?
Yeah.
And no one's going to get in my way. And so, we're seeing a shift to a populist movement right now, and that populism is playing, and it's not just playing for the right; it'll play on the left too, because they've been conditioned for it. They've seen what's going on the right, and they go, "Wow, we can't keep taking punches here and expect a rope-a-dope. We're going to have to get up and fight a little bit."
Well, you might be onto something, because I saw another story today that David Axelrod, who was the an advisor to a strategist for former President Obama.
Yep.
He has warned President Biden, because of the results of this latest poll, that it's time to decide and reconsider running against Donald Trump. I don't know if Biden does that. I mean, he was told last time, you got to run because you're the only hope of beating this guy. And he did.
Yeah.
So I don't.
He was a warm blanket at the time, right? The country was feeling so upset, so frustrated, and this was before January 6th, right? And we said we need a steady hand at the helm, and we need someone that we can trust. And Biden seemed like the most trustworthy guy out there. He seemed like reliable grandpa who was always going to bring you a Werther's original at Thanksgiving, and he was going to, he was going to slip you an extra scoop of ice cream, right? And that was kind of his appeal. Is he was a very trustworthy, likable individual, and we felt comfortable with him.
Yeah.
And now he's the incumbent. He's going to run on his record, and his record isn't bad, but boy, is it being hammered. People they don't really recognize that the economy is doing pretty well considering, but it's still affecting people on Main Street. And then when the cost of gas is really high and you're trying to fill up your 3/4 ton diesel, people are going, well, this is Biden's fault. This is on that guy. And Trump goes, well, when I left office, gas was like $2.50 a gallon. Well, yeah, because we were a pandemic and nobody was driving and the bottom fell out, but it doesn't matter. They're running on that. I can't even tell you how many times I've heard that. Well, when Trump left office, gas was only whatever, and I go, well, yeah, well, when Trump left office, unemployment was at 12% too, because we had the pandemic going on.
I don't know how a president fixes that, the inflation at the grocery stores and the price of everything. I don't know how that's even fixable.
No, it has way more to do with the Fed and the interest rates and consumer confidence and all those sorts of things. Offering a steady hand is probably the best way that they can do it, is saying, listen, we're on it. We're looking at it. We care about you. They can't go into the grocery store and change the prices. And if they did, you'd have people screaming about communism. So,
right.
They can't do a whole lot, but they're going to take the blame for all of it. They'll also take the credit if things are going well. They'll take the credit for all of it too. So,
it's true that, I don't know, 3 years ago, we're paying a lot less than we're paying today. It's hurting us in this house.
Sure.
So I think that that's something all Americans feel like intimately.
Yeah. I feel bad for you. You got to cover Mark's show just to make
just to make things work. I'm running out of my Chris Merrill time, so I'll ask you. I haven't asked you about what you thought about the Trump children on the stand last week.
Right.
I saw that there are some people saying Eric Trump needs to shut his mouth. Ivanka trying to get out of the whole thing by saying I'm a mom and weekdays are bad for me, and then you have Donald Trump Jr. on the stand telling the court reporter to make me look sexy. Yeah.
Did you see the show Succession? Because
yes.
The more I watch this family, the more I go, it's not the Murdochs, it's the Trumps.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, all of them from the ambitious and almost capable son to the just dim-witted son who they keep on the fringes to look, Tiffany Trump. Where is she? She's just gone. She always has been gone.
Yeah.
right? And then all of us are kind of at home. We're looking at Barron Trump, who's like 8'3". He kind of looks like cousin Greg from Succession. We're like, oh, maybe he could be the innocent guy who doesn't turn out all screwed up. But look, it's in his genes, So I mean, it's all there. Yeah. So it's just a circus. And they played the part. They came out, they trained the elephants, they tamed the lions, they did exactly what they were supposed to do for the circus. And people bought their peanuts and their souvenirs, and his approval rating goes up. So they did what they needed to do.
What do you think? This might be a stupid question. What do you? I mean, you've kind of pulled out your crystal ball and said that Newsom is going to be the Democratic candidate.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's going to be Newsom versus Trump. Newsom versus Haley. What do you think? And in the Chris Merrill,
I'm going to say
Newsom who? Newsom Trump?
Yeah, because I think the only thing that takes Trump out is the legal issue, unless there's a medical emergency. I think the only thing that takes him out is the legal trouble. Yeah. And I don't think the timeline works for him to be removed.
So who wins in that hypothetical Merrill matchup?
I think Newsom actually would beat Trump.
Really?
Yeah, I do, because as much as Trump he's basically an incumbent. We have a weird election where we have an actual incumbent and a kind of incumbent running against him. Newsom's track record is in California. They're going to hammer things like the French Laundry, right? They're going to hit that really hard.
Yeah.
It would be funny to see like some on the left that are like, how good is Newsom's judgment when he married Kimberly Guilfoyle? That sort of thing. It doesn't matter at all. It'll be kind of funny to see. But I think just the idea of, okay, well, at least the guy doesn't start World War III on Twitter. I think there's some of the same concerns that voters had in 2020, they're going to have about Trump in 2024. And if there's an alternative that they feel comfortable with, who is healthy, right? I think we're going to look at that and say, all right, well, let's give him a shot.
We're playing worst case scenario at my dinner table last night, where if we have a Trump win in 2024, what does that mean for the country? And does it mean that people need to try to leave while they can? We saw there's a story today where he's already plotting plans to exact revenge on anyone who's spoken out against him.
Yeah.
Not that I'm important at all, but I mean, I've spoken out against him. And so does that mean that people need to check out? Does America survive a Trump presidency, a second one?
Yeah, it does. It does. And I can't even tell you how many times I've heard the country can't survive 4 more years of insert name here. Every challenger says that about the incumbent. And look, we survived the first 4 years. We'll survive the next 4 years. I've read articles about how, listen, now he knows how the game is played. Now he's even more dangerous. Yeah, well, so do the American people. We know how he works. I do think that there are safeguards in place, and he's challenging those safeguards. He's challenging them in a way that have never been challenged before. And as much as he complains about the government, the DOJ being weaponized, I mean, he's come out and said, my plan is to weaponize the government, the DOJ. But I do think that there are safeguards in place, and I look, my personal opinion is he's not the right guy for this country, and he's going to set us back a ways, and we're seeing the populist movement going on. But maybe we need a reminder of how bad things can get, and then we sort of course correct, and then flourish after that. But in the meantime, we'll survive.
Chris Merrill, I adore you. You look great. It's so good to see your face.
It's your face.
Your face.
Yeah, I trimmed my beard, lumberjack beard, for this, because you should have seen it. I was looking really like I just crawled out from under a log in the deep woods. So
no, you look well shorn in your cottage underground bunker studio, looking good.
Like this. I gotta get my plugs redone here too. So I don't like to look at myself on camera for that reason, right there. Look at that.
Well, have a great rest of your day on the radio. Thank you for being on the Mark Thompson Show. Rest assured, I will be calling on you again.
Good. Love you.
Love you. Bye, Chris Merrill. Chris Merrill, everybody. Love talking to him. Let's do a little bit of news, Tony, before we move on to more of California politics. We have Gary Dietrich coming up on the Mark Thompson Show. We'll talk to him. We also have Karen Dawn with Dawn Watch coming up as well. Take this moment to remind you, if you could, to please click the like button. And if you haven't clicked the subscribe button, do that as well. Might as well. Free, no problem. Just a little clickety click and you're done with it. So... but let's do some news. Why don't we? And then we'll come back and we'll talk more about California politics. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, in for Mark Thompson today. Heavy fighting continues in Gaza, where Israel says its forces have reached the coastline. Israeli forces said the ground operation against Hamas has split the enclave into North Gaza and South Gaza. The Secretary of State Antony Blinken is pushing for a humanitarian pause in the fighting as he meets with leaders in that region. Former President Trump, as we mentioned with Chris Merrill, is clashing with the judge in his New York civil fraud trial. Trump took the witness stand today, quickly drew warnings from the judge in this case, making political statements, not directly answering any questions. That live shot of the courthouse from Tony there. The judge, an elected Democrat, called on Trump's lawyers to control their client, as if that's possible in any way, shape, or form. New York Congressman George Santos is not ruling out a plea deal. The GOP lawmaker is facing 23 criminal charges that include lying on financial disclosure forms, misleading donors, and fraudulently collecting COVID unemployment benefits. Santos told CNN he's not admitting anything, but hasn't ruled out a plea deal if it should come his way. And he also says no matter what the outcome of the case is, he's going to run again for re-election. The Biden administration is putting billions of dollars toward upgrading Amtrak's Northeast Corridor. While speaking from Delaware today, President Biden announced more than $16 billion for 25 passenger rail projects. The projects include rebuilding 100-year-old tunnels and bridges, upgrading tracks, and improving travel times as well. The funds come from the bipartisan infrastructure law's overall $66 billion investment in rail. Biden, as a senator, of course, took Amtrak for decades while commuting to Washington, D.C. And as mentioned earlier, at least 1/3 of the nation's homeless vets are in California. The state spends billions on homeless veteran programs, but veteran homeless numbers remain mostly unchanged. Some hope Governor Newsom's $6.4 billion mental health bond will address this problem. It is a shift from historical measures, namely providing housing to homeless vets. California has 8 veteran homes, but many are still underused. Governor Newsom tried to shut one down a few years ago, but was overruled. Advocates say the governor's new strategy in the mental health bond will help those most in need. The data shows 1/2 of homeless vets have a behavioral health issue that needs to be addressed. At the University of California, the highest paid employees are not the professors. You know who they are. According to the review of payroll data done by Transparent California, coaches have the biggest paycheck. Though several clinical professors make upwards of $3.5 million a year, UCLA football coach Chip Kelly brings in more than $5.8 million in total compensation. Other coaches in the $4 to $5 million range: UC Berkeley football coach Justin Wilcox, UCLA men's basketball coach Mike Cronin. The president of the university system, Michael Drake, earned $992,000 last year. Coaches are paid even more than he is. 99% of UC employees make between $30,000 and $550,000 a year. Not the coaches. They got it going on. It's another first for California. 2 new state-funded guaranteed income pilot programs just launched. The goal is to keep 300 former foster kids out of poverty with monthly payments. So half will get $1,000 in Ventura County. The other half will get $12,000 in San Francisco. Governor Gavin Newsom says this will help level the playing field with support and resources needed for foster kids to pursue their dreams. The money is set to last about 18 months, so we'll see how that guaranteed income plays out and whether it helps the people that it needs to help. Concerned parents, mental health professionals, and in some instances, even kids are concerned about the mental health effects of social media addiction. There are hundreds of lawsuits across the U.S., all asking social media companies to change how their products work. One California case may be pivotal. It accuses the platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook of using algorithms that hook kids and cause mental health problems, including suicidal thoughts. Attorneys for the company say businesses are not legally required to prevent users from becoming addicted to their products. Okay, but if you know it's a problem, In San Diego, a series of lights in the air. The U.S. Navy says a cluster of lights over San Diego's Snapdragon Stadium Sunday was just from a Navy parachute team. It wasn't UFOs, people. No. The Navy parachute team is called the Leapfrogs. They were part of the activity at the stadium for the National Women's Soccer League semifinal game between the San Diego Wave Football Club and the Seattle OL Reign. The Navy did warn the public before the jump, but multiple calls to the police came in. They want everyone to know it was just the parachuters. Elon Musk is debuting Grok. It's the first technology from his new AI company called, of course, XAI. The company says it's modeled on The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's supposed to have some wit and a rebellious streak. Your AI is supposed to have some wit and a rebellious streak. The prototype in its beta testing phase, so pretty early on yet. Only a small number of users will have access to this before a wider release to the chat bot. It would eventually be a feature of X Premium Plus, which Musk said would be $16 a month. So if you want access to Grok, you're going to have to cough up the whole cold, hard cash because they're not just giving it away, right? Let's see. Oh, I wanted to tell you that there is a spotlight now on the health of E Street Band guitarist Steven Van Zandt, giving a health update on Bruce Springsteen. So while speaking at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony in Brooklyn Friday, Van Zandt said, Bruce Springsteen is in great shape amid his battle with peptic ulcer disease. He told People magazine the band is going to come back stronger than ever in March. And Springsteen, of course, announced in September the remainder of the 2023 tour dates had been rescheduled because of his illness. And of course, you know, here she comes again. Mariah Carey is helping celebrate the holidays in a new fashion campaign. The pop music icon featured in the 2023 Victoria's Secret holiday campaign. In one of the ads, the All I Want for Christmas singer is dressed in a red corset top and a red long skirt complete with a high side slit. Last week, Carey welcomed the holiday season in a viral video where she sang "It's Time" as ice melted around her. Is that what we've come to? Like, Christmas, instead of, you know, seeing lights pop up and if you live where it snows, it's first snowfall of the season, and having the warmth of Christmas and the white snow. Now, for most people, it's when you see Mariah Carey thawing the ice and popping out in her sexy red dress. That's Christmas. Well, happy holidays to you. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show. Little rejoiner there, Tony, maybe? No? Okay. Wow. That's right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
It is the Mark Thompson Show. Hi, Tony. What? We're going to get it, you know. Oh, you're muted again. It's all right. Mark's off today.
I know what I'm doing.
Anything goes. And when Mark's not here, it's like, whatever.
Don't say he's listening. He's texting.
I know. I saw him. He said, mercifully for you guys, I can't listen to the rest of the show.
There's Gary. He just checked in. If you wanted to see, I found the lights in San Diego. If you want to see that real fast.
I do. Can we see the lights in San Diego? Okay. If I saw that, is it a video? Oh, it is. Yeah. I might think that looks weird, but I don't think I would think that was a UFO. Would you?
No.
It looks like parachuters.
Kinda.
Or maybe because we know what it is.
I definitely would think that's UFOs.
I wouldn't think it's UFOs. I mean, no. That's good. Good hustle on that video, though. Thank you. You're awesome.
Mariah Carey picture if you want to see what that looks like, but if you saw it.
Saw her already cracking through her eyes. Is that what it is with the holidays for you? When you see Mariah, you're like, oh, Christmas is here.
It's just like, okay, it's that song is gonna get just beaten to oblivion again.
Over and over and over again. Here she is. Oh, there she is in her sexy outfit.
There you go. All right.
Good old
and
Mariah.
Gary's in the lobby.
It's time. Happy holidays. Oh, Gary Dietrich. You know, it's funny. I told Mark that we're bringing Gary Dietrich on the show, and he said, "Oh, tell him feel so bad we haven't had him on lately, and we needed to have him on, and I want to get him on." So I get to talk to Gary Dietrich instead of Mark Thompson today. I'm tickled about it. Gary Dietrich, the former KGO political analyst, not analysis, because I can speak English. Now, though, not. Now he has a brand new title. And we're very excited to welcome Gary Dietrich, the CBS television and iHeartRadio political analyst, to the Mark Thompson Show. Hi, Gary Dietrich. Oh, you're muted. I don't hear you.
Let's see.
I'm getting a little bit of you here and there.
Okay, you got me?
I got you. It took a second, but you kicked in.
All right.
Hi.
It's Mark's loss. Let's just put it that way. I got a nice text message from Mark actually this morning. I look forward to being on. But Kim, good to talk to you. Certainly, never a dull moment. Shall we say that?
You know, the problem with us is today, Gary, is that you're cutting in and out, so I can hear like every fourth word. Sadly. Yeah.
Here, I can try using earbuds here if you'll give me just a moment.
Yeah, I'll totally give you a second, because there's a lot of politics that I want to talk to you about, especially statewide-wise. We're looking at the state Senate race as Gary gets himself situated there. We're looking at the state Senate race, and I wanted to find out what he thought of all this, where we have Adam Schiff, and we have Katie Porter, and we have Barbara Lee, and we had the latest polls showing Porter and Schiff kind of very close in this race, so I wanted to talk to him about that. About Governor Gavin Newsom, we'll throw the Chris Merrill theory of Governor Gavin Newsom stepping into the presidential race at Gary and see what he has to say about that. Also, you know, it's interesting. I don't know if the governor of California is held accountable for what's happening with all the tech company layoffs, but could that have an impact on Governor Gavin Newsom? So we'll see if Gary Dietrich sounds like Gary Dietrich now.
All right.
Okay.
How does this sound? How is that sounding?
It sounds a little loud, but you sound okay to me. But let's
Well, I'll let the level people, our tech types,
handle that. Tony's got it, he says.
Okay.
All right, let's jump right into it, Gary Dietrich. Well, before we do, how was your recent trip to nature?
Oh, well, Yosemite, Valley, of course, always spectacular. I escaped last week, couple of mental health days, and also celebrate my son's 20th birthday with him. We hiked to the top of Yosemite Falls. And it was unseasonably warm. I sincerely appreciate the fact that Friday, it was 75 degrees in Yosemite Valley, absolutely spectacular. So, I go every year at least once. Yeah. I'm an old Eagle Scout. It's in my blood. There's no getting out of it.
I remember once I was hiking in Yosemite with some coworkers, and it was autumn, and all of a sudden wind picked up all the autumn leaves. I don't know if they coming off the trees or what, but they were swirling around the sky. And it was just this moment of magic that I will never forget. Sometimes you need those moments, right, to kind of help us through all the bad stuff. Yeah. Let's jump into the Senate race in California, because there was a recent poll that had, I think, Katie Porter 1 point over Adam Schiff. So they're basically neck and neck. Barbara Lee not really mentioned as being very high up in this poll. What are we looking at going into this California Senate race?
Well, there's really a couple of dynamics here. And of course, for folks who may not be following this as closely as we do, of course, this is the race to replace Dianne Feinstein for both it's weird, it sounds strange, but for the full 6-year term. But also there's a simultaneous election on the same ballot that will have the same names essentially running for the last 2 months of the current term. We have an appointee, Governor Newsom, as people may remember, appointed a black woman. He had promised to do so. It wasn't Barbara Lee. That created a lot of consternation. But he said he didn't want to replace Dianne Feinstein with somebody who was currently running. That's Barbara Lee in terms of being a black female. So right now you have the numbers exactly right. The most recent poll out of the Berkeley Institute of Politics has Katie Porter a point ahead of Adam Schiff. And then dropping down another 4 or 5 points, you've got Steve Garvey, Republican, famous Dodger legend, who jumped into the race. And then you've got Barbara Lee and several other Republicans. So really, here's what it boils down to, Kim. I mean, our primary system in California is set up so it's the top 2 vote getters, regardless of party. Right now, that would set up Katie Porter versus Adam Schiff.
Yeah.
That could be a clear intra-party massive political war between those two. But if Steve Garvey consolidates that Republican base, he may be able to pull ahead of one of the two and set it up as a traditional Republican versus Democrat race next fall.
So I was just talking to a former KGO talk show host, Chris Merrill, and it's his belief that Biden won't run and that Governor Gavin Newsom will run and he'll be the Democratic candidate in 2024. So I wanted to throw his hypothetical at you and see if you think there's any merit. We're already seeing Governor Gavin Newsom do some pretty presidential things on the national stage, trying to debate DeSantis, going on to national shows for debates. Who was he on with? Some Fox host. Going to trips overseas, right? Going to China, Israel, that type of thing. So he's acting a little presidential. Do you think there's any merit to that he'll step into a race? And how does he do that with Kamala Harris in the wings?
Well, I'll tell you, this I can call it rumor, call it Las Vegas odds betting about Gavin getting into this race. I have never seen, and this has gotten to the point now, we just have to believe that somebody or some buddies inside the governor's office keep slipping these, sneaking down to a FedEx store or a UPS store and faxing these press releases. Or, hey, what about, because this thing just won't go away. All right. I mean, and of course, Newsom says, oh, I'm not running for president. Well, we all know he is. I tell people he is running for president. It's simply a matter of, is it in 24 or in 28? For all the reasons you put out there, Kim, it's become common belief now that this guy is now running for the White House. And you point out a significant, some would consider it an impediment. I'm not sure Newsom and his people do. That is, I don't know. He has a vice president by the name of Kamala Harris, who herself wanted that top job. So that sets things up certainly for 28, no doubt about it. But really, here's what this really boils down to. I mean, the bottom line is you're not going to take out an incumbent president of your own party unless the candidate himself and or the party says, Joe, time's up. So, I mean, I think practically speaking, this is not going to happen. That is Gavin jumping into this race unless Joe himself were to step aside or something happened to him traumatic that prevents him from actually running for the office. That's where we are, Kim. Now, all this other stuff presents an awful lot of interesting fodder, however. You look at him going to China 2 weeks ago. That happened, by the way, the week after China held a huge international summit that, yes, Putin himself attended in China, where the Chinese openly talked about wanting to create a new world order to replace the one, right now dominated by Western powers in the United States. That struck people as exceptionally odd that our California governor would go over in light of that. And one other little interesting point of that trip, I'll just end it there, Kim, and it is when he showed up and had what was an unannounced meeting with President Xi, guess what? The American press was not allowed into that meeting. The Chinese press was, but not the U.S. press. That raised a lot of eyebrows.
Interesting. All right. I'll pose the same question that I posed to Chris Merrill. If he's right, and if it's Newsom versus Trump in 2024, who wins?
Well, I mean, at this juncture, one has no idea. I mean, right now, as we speak, as you know, Trump is literally on the witness stand in New York for one of his trials, right? Yeah. How that's going to end up, nobody knows. Yeah. But then let's just leave. Everybody knows the Trump saga and that all the unpredictabilities there. But let's take a look for a second at Newsom. I mean, the challenge for Gavin Newsom is going to be that he is seen as who he has been, the mayor of one of the most liberal cities in the United States, in San Francisco. The governor of one of the most blue states in the country, California. Will he have appeal to certain constituencies nationally? Absolutely. But at the same time, this ain't Kansas, Toto. You know what I mean? And I mean, the challenge is always, Kim, as you know, in our day, one thing. Winning over those half a dozen or so swing states is the absolute key to winning the Electoral College. That, how Newsom would perform in those states right now, anybody's guess.
Yeah, and we just saw a national poll come out saying that Trump is over ahead of Biden in at least 5 key swing states. So
right.
I don't know. So I'm looking at this story in the Guardian newspaper, and they do some U.S. stories, but it's very disconcerting to see them hone in on Shasta County in California. And I don't know if you happen to see this one pop up, but in Shasta County, it's a very conservative board of supervisors, and they don't want Dominion voting machines, which had been used in previous elections, used at all in their elections. As a matter of fact, they want to go to a hand tally. The state of California says, no, you can't do that. As a matter of fact, we're going to make a new state law barring election offices from using manual tallies on established election dates and contests worth more than 1,000 voters in the event of a special election and contests with more than 5,000 voters. So now you've got the Shasta County clerk and registrar of voters. Her name is Kathy Darling Allen, thinking, well, what do I do? Because if I follow the state law, the county supervisors are going to be all bent out of joint. If I follow the county law, I'm not good with in compliance with state election law, and I don't know what to do. She said, the Shasta County folks are saying, I expect you'll uphold your obligation to comply with the law. And so it puts her in a really hard position. They're trying to create this new voting system desired by the board, but the state law prevents her office from even using that system. So what do they do in Shasta County?
Yeah, well, this saga has been unfolding for some time in Shasta. And by the way, I was one of the keynote speakers at the Rural Counties Association of California conference a month ago. Yeah, people were talking about this, of course. I mean, a lot of these, people in urban areas of California forget there are 58 counties in California. Yeah. I mean, count them, folks. Not everybody thinks the same. And even this board, interestingly, Kim, is not united on this. There are some of the board that say, no, we've got to, comply with the state requirements on this. Other board members, absolutely adamant. They want this paper ballot hand count. So we don't know where this is going to end up. Almost certainly in court at some juncture with the state versus the county board, if the board in a majority says we are not going to go with those electronic machines. There's talk about going with a different vendor. Would that satisfy the members of the board, getting away from Dominion? I don't know where this is all going to end up, but certainly it portends, Kim, larger issues. I mean, Shasta County is just a microcosm of what we're probably going to see, right, in the aftermath of the issues of 2020. This isn't going to be isolated to Shasta County in California. You're going to see these kind of stories pop up probably all over the U.S.
Do you think that, and this is kind of off topic on that, but do you think that with all the tech layoffs, because there's another one, 454 workers being laid off, and this tech CEO is talking about the next phase of growth with one hand and the other hand laying off, almost 600 workers. This out of a company in Redwood City, Informatica. So is that something when you're losing jobs, like really high-paying tech jobs in California, that reflects on Governor Gavin Newsom, or is that more of a overall jobs that reflects on the federal government, or does it matter when you're looking at candidates?
Right, probably both, Ann. But make no mistake about it. Gavin Newsom has to own and wear this. I mean, one of the most interesting parts of this is going to become, you'll know now famously, that Newsom has now agreed to debate Ron DeSantis on the Sean Hannity show coming up here in a couple of weeks. And I think the important thing is to ask, okay, so where is job growth in the tech sector? You have to be honest about it and say a lot of it's happening in places like Austin, Texas, and elsewhere. And so that's where Gavin gets tripped up. How do you say, well, our state is the tech center of the world, which it still remains. But when you're having job cuts in our state, and then you have job growth in some of these tech sectors in other states, that becomes a problem. Likewise, Kim, with the stats, new stats just came out again today. Where are people looking to buy homes? Well, there's a lot more Californians looking to, and they track this, like websites with, and U-Haul, stats and websites for real estate companies. And the bottom line is there's more Californians looking to move out of the state than there are people looking to move. So that's a problem for Gavin. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. I read that there's a couple of cities that are still growing in California. I think one is Bakersfield and one is in Southern California, Menifee. And those are the only two cities in our state that are seeing a population, in the other direction, growing instead of going. And I don't know if you know a lot of people, but I do, who have checked out. And maybe it's because their politics don't align, or maybe it's just because they feel like they can't afford to live here anymore. And sadly, unless something changes, once people leave, it's not like it's easy to get back in.
Yeah, and it's not just the Bay Area and San Francisco in particular, famously now, hemorrhaging some of these folks. But as you know, I'm here in the state capital, and in the Sacramento region, it's true too. Anecdotally, I know a number of people inside and outside the media that have moved, as you know, particularly to states in the Southeast, like Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia, Kentucky. These are places where people have moved. Yes, Florida as well. Thank you, Ron DeSantis. So this does become a challenge. By the way, I forgot to mention when you were talking about our esteemed Governor Gavin Newsom, I was down. CBS flew me down to the GOP presidential debate, the last one at the Reagan Library there. Who showed up in the spin room? You may know our governor walked in a side door with his security detail.
Oh, how funny.
And was in the spin room with all of us. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Sean Hannity did put him up on the chair for a few minutes and kind of, harassed him. But Gavin is making no, bones about the fact that he's willing to stand up. He was the chief surrogate for the Biden people that day. Well, he's willing to stand up for the Biden ticket, stand up for California, and let's see, stand up for his own candidacy perhaps soon.
I don't know what's going to happen with that. I'm looking also at local politics and a lot of, infighting in San Francisco. Have you been following what's happening with Mayor London Breed? There's still a problem in the Tenderloin. There's still a problem, with crime in San Francisco. And I think they're really trying to crack down on things, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to keep her in office. What are you looking at as far as San Francisco politics?
Well, I tell you, predictability has never been a hallmark of San Francisco politics, Kim, as you know. but I will tell you this. It really appears to me like if there ever was a moment in my lifetime where San Francisco politics has the chance of being completely turned upside down, it's right now. I think there are absolutely no doubt, there are clearly some business forces, particularly at work, saying enough is enough. We just cannot continue in this direction. And, there's some encouraging signs here and there, but the trend line still has not turned around in most people's view. And I think that if there ever was a time when you're going to see politics at least moderating, if not, I know this sounds impossible, moving in a more conservative direction in San Francisco, seems like to most observers that time would be now.
Mark Thompson texts me questions to ask you because he wants me to ask you a couple of things, and really it's on a national scale. And you said that was okay to go national with you as well.
Of course.
He said he wonders if you have opinions on the results that people will be watching in tomorrow's national elections. Number one is the Ohio issue, which is a referendum on whether to establish a right to abortion in their state constitution. Also, the Kentucky governor, Andy Beshear, is a Democrat going up against Daniel Cameron, who's a Republican. He wants to know, can a popular Democratic governor win in a Republican state? And also, just all these races, and I'll ask you this kind of a three-pronged question here. Do you think that what we're going to see tomorrow in this election will be reflective of what's going to happen in a presidential election in 2024?
Okay. Well, I'm going to take those in the order you gave them so I can remember them.
Abortion, Beshear.
Yeah, I got it. So as I coined a phrase recently, the old brainium, so we can keep things going in the brain. All right. So abortion. The important thing about the Ohio abortion ballot measure is it's really a test case for does that issue have relevance and weight for 2024? I mean, that will apply solely to Ohio, and that could be a big deal for people in my mom's home state, the Buckeye State. But the real question nationally is, will abortion resonate down ticket, not only in the presidential race, but in U.S. Senate races, in gubernatorial races, in congressional races next year? And that is going to be something people are going to be watching closely. Now, in terms of red states and governorships, this is something that is particularly interesting, and it's particularly important. People, why would we care? Well, here's why you want to care. Because remember that it's individual states that hold individual elections and, for example, put together their own reapportionment plans every 10 years. So if you have red state governors and red state legislators, you're going to get a very different reapportionment, right? A drawing of congressional seats, for example, than you're going to get if those states are controlled by Democrats, either at the governor's level or at their state legislators, or if they have a mix of those. So that's why this is being closely watched, and that's why those key races, particularly in the Southeast, are being very carefully watched. Mark's question, can a blue state governor who's a populist win? Yeah. We're going to find out. Lastly, let's go to the national election, and will these results portend anything for 2024? I will tell you this. Things are so volatile right now with so many different issues. I mean, Ukraine, Israel. You have a lot of foreign policy issues right now that rarely get center stage in a presidential election year, but they may this next year. The economy, of course, sitting out there, but all these other issues as well. So the short answer, Kim, is tomorrow's results will give us sort of some tea leaves to look at, but there's a long time between now and the primaries in the spring, and especially next fall. So I would say the predictive nature of tomorrow will have some value, but not definitive determinative value.
Okay, I think that's reasonable, right? Mark also asks, and this is interesting because he's seeing these, he said the ads are really attack ads on TV back there on the East Coast. He says, I've seen the Virginia state legislative elections that are going to be held tomorrow referred to as a focus group for America. There are at least 3 competitive races in the Virginia House and Senate. Democrats' narrow majority in the state Senate is their only hold on power in Richmond after the GOP's 2021 victories. Will, he writes, Glenn Youngkin's Republican revival continue in territory that had been rapidly trending blue? He says a Republican sweep would allow Youngkin to enact his agenda, which includes outlawing abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy, with exceptions of rape, incest, and life of the expectant mother.
Yeah. Well, Youngkin is seen, a lot of people on the West Coast don't know a lot about him, but he is clearly seen on the East Coast and by both the Democratic and Republican establishments as a real rising star, because he did win that statewide race in Virginia, which, people thought was indeed maybe trending Democrat. But, I think tomorrow's House races, that is state House races, not U.S. congressional races, it's interesting. Kim, I will tell you this. Nobody cares about, state legislative races on the other coast, but they do now. Because it's really seen as a potential bellwether for how that state is going to go. And next door, West Virginia, for example, in U.S. Senator Manchin, is he going to be able to survive that, next year? Is he even going to run for his own U.S. Senate seat next door? Or is he going to jump in as an independent candidate next year and really upset the apple cart at the presidential race level?
There are people that I know that say they can't follow politics because it's too upsetting and too depressing. But when we talk about it, we seem to have a particular interest and excitement about it. Do you feel like this is a different era in politics where, I don't know, people are kind of backing away from it, back away slowly, don't look at the train wreck? Or is it something that's pulling more people in because it's more divisive and you kind of have to take a side and you can't really, play neutral when candidates are so extreme?
Well, yes, of course, your trusty nonpartisan political analyst currently conversing with you would take exception to the fact that you must essentially be a bomb thrower or a chair thrower to have anything valuable to say. But I will say, Kim, that I think the two groups you're talking about both exist. Okay, what do I mean by that? I do think, and sometimes ironically, They coexist. In other words, the same person can have both capacities and characteristics. What do I mean by that? I do think that there is certainly a sense in which, oh my gosh, politics is so distasteful. I mean, when have we seen people name calling like they are, et cetera, et cetera? That is true. However, I'll tell you, my experience is, and if you watch the media right now, people are really covering politics extensively, far more than they used to, especially at the local and state level, because I think the nature of the issues are so visceral for people, and they feel their impact much more than they may have in the past. Oh, politics, they stay in the past. I don't care what happens in Sacramento or whatever city hall or even Washington. That's not the case now. You walk in any Starbucks up and down California or any place nationwide, people are talking politics, okay? And I think that's the reality of it. People have a real strong sense. Look at what they went through in COVID, what they've gone through with inflation recently. People know this stuff impacts my lives and my kids' lives and my business, my job lives, my jobs, and there's no getting around that.
Yeah. Gary Dietrich, can we have you back on the show soon?
Well, we can certainly negotiate that with Mark. Absolutely.
Awesome. It's so good to see your face. I miss you so much. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving with your family, and I'm looking forward to the next time you come back with us.
Thanks a lot, Kim. Say hi to Mark, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you. That's Gary Dietrich, everybody. He is the CBS television and iHeartRadio political analyst, and we got to have him for almost a half hour here on the Mark Thompson Show, so we're super lucky. All right, Tony, let us do some news and then stories from a sky, and then we'll talk to Karen Dawn with Dawn Watch about animals. Does that sound like a good plan? Unless you have a different one.
Sure, if you want to go that order, or we can go to Karen, whatever you want to do. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so first some news. How about some more? Let's have it. There it is. Thank you, Tony. You're awesome. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. So good. Wine. And you need it. Trust me. The United States is now pushing for a humanitarian pause as Israel's war with Hamas stretches past the 4-week mark. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken making a surprise visit to Iraq and the occupied West Bank yesterday as the U.S. aims to prevent this conflict from spreading further. More than 11,000 people in total have reportedly been killed on both sides of this conflict since the fighting started on October 7th. One of former President Trump's lawyers is slamming the judge in his New York civil fraud trial. Trump's lawyer calling the Democratic elected judge unhinged and said everyone has the right to defend themselves. This case involves a $250 million lawsuit filed by New York Attorney General Letitia James, also a Democrat. Nearly 24 U.S. service members may have been injured in recent attacks in Iraq and Syria. NBC News is reporting that's more than twice as many as the Pentagon had previously disclosed. Base housing U.S. personnel have been attacked dozens of times since October after the start of the war between Israel and Hamas. The death penalty is seeing its lowest support in 5 decades. That according to a new Gallup survey, which shows 50% said it was given out unfairly compared to 47% who said, no, it's given fairly. The last time the Gallup poll asked this question, 45% said it was being applied fairly. In Oakland, a water mystery unfolding in the Oakland estuary. That is where crews pulled a flatbed cargo truck last night out of the water and towed it away. A witness called it in saying the truck had been submerged for at least 3 hours. Rescue divers searched the area. They didn't find anyone inside the vehicle or nearby. Fire officials say they have no idea how the truck got there in the first place, and they're asking for any witnesses to come forward and give police a call. It's another Bay Area city surpassing San Francisco in home prices. Dublin is now one of the most expensive places to live, ranking as the fastest growing city in California. The real estate listing site Zillow shows that average prices rose 4% in the last 6 months, while San Francisco prices didn't change. San Jose also overtook the city this summer in home values. Fremont did it last year as well. So San Francisco kind of sinking. It used to be the most expensive in the Bay Area, and now it's kind of dropping down a little bit. In Palo Alto, a Stanford student is recovering from a hit and run that he calls a hate crime. He claims the driver yelled a racist slur, then struck him on purpose on Friday as he was walking to class. The student is Arab Muslim. He says while the physical scars will eventually heal, the emotional scars of being targeted for his appearance and beliefs are likely to linger on. The school's president condemning the crime, declaring violence on campus to be unacceptable. Lastly, more drugs are off the streets. Speaking about Palo Alto, this is East Palo Alto. Police found more than a pound of cocaine, MDMA, pills, marijuana. The bust comes during the arrest of 3 teenagers last week, caught on surveillance video in connection to a shooting that month, last month rather. Police searched their homes, showed off what else they seized: an AR-15 rifle with 60-pound magazine, 4 other guns, and about $4,000 in cash. Teenagers had all that. I don't know how we reconcile that. Do want to lighten things up by telling you, well, I don't know if this is very light, but U.S. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib of Michigan is responding to people calling for her to apologize from a social media post. Definitely not light. Over the weekend, Tlaib shared a video of a crowd of demonstrators in her district chanting "From the river to the sea," what Israel says means the establishment of a state of Palestine from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. Tlaib says it's a call for freedom, while Republican Representative Alyssa Slotkin of New York, who is Jewish, denounced that post, called for Tlaib to apologize. It doesn't look like she is responding to calls for her to apologize at all. So, not happening. Now we'll lighten it up if you consider spiders lighter. A spider species is spreading. A study from Clemson University says Joro spiders are spreading beyond South Carolina. They could inhabit most of the eastern United States. These spiders are large. They are brightly colored, and they use their webs to travel in the wind. They are venomous, but researchers say they don't bite humans or pets unless they're cornered. No thank you, Joro spider. Stay on the East Coast. I'll stay on my coast. We'll just never meet in the middle. How about that? This report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. You get an exclusive 10% off from Tenuta Vineyards, and let me tell you, the winery is absolutely beautiful. A beautiful view of the vineyards, got a little tasting flight going on, and the motto at Tenuta is give them 30 minutes and you'll be friends for life. So friendly, so fun, and everyone that goes out there will that has heard about them on our show emails us to say they had the best time. They have a lot of wine to taste too. 28 varietals. They've got 14 whites, 14 reds, and you get the Mark Thompson Show discount if you call Rich out at Tenuta and say, smash it with your iron rod. You get that 10% off. He's at 925-699-4576. It's a great time because the holiday is coming. The Mark Thompson Why Are You Yelling Red? The Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson Pinot Grigio? Make great Christmas gifts or holiday gifts for whatever holiday you celebrate. Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. Our thanks to them for sponsoring the newscast on the Mark Thompson Show. Yeah, smash it with your iron rod and you get your exclusive 10% off. All right. In just a moment, we will talk to Karen Dawn about animals. Karen Dawn with Dawn Watch. But I did want to get to stories from the sky. Can we do that really quickly, Tony?
This has been...
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Enough is enough! I have had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane! Everybody strap in!
Stories from the sky, and this is because I saw this story yesterday, and what a fight in the air. I'll tell you what, we have video with this one, Tony. Airline passengers fighting over the right to recline the seat or not. When you get on an airplane, is it rude to just recline it back? Some people say they ease it back. Some people say, no, you have to ask the person behind you, is it okay if I put my seat back a bit? This woman says, listen, the seat reclines for a reason. It means I'm allowed to recline my seat and I don't have to ask anyone. I mean, I would argue that we're all in the same common space together. If you slap your seat back, who knows what they have on their tray table? Drinks could spill, you know, could have a larger person behind you, taller person smacking into their kneecaps or their legs. But this is an ugly, ugly fight on this airline. The person was mad that this woman had reclined her seat, and they got into it. You know, don't recline your seat. She's like, I have a right. I have a right to recline my seat. And I don't know. Yeah, let's take a look at it, Tony. It got kind of ugly up there.
Put my seat back. I'm allowed to put my seat back.
Yeah, it goes on and on and on like this. Of course, she's allowed to put her seat back, but is that polite? So, I mean, I think this is one of those age-old arguments as to how you handle it and how you deal with people. And getting that angry over something like that seems to be maybe a step over the line. So yeah, she's arguing multiple times, I'm allowed to put my seat back. And that if it wasn't meant to be reclined, then the airlines wouldn't have them there. That the CEO of the airline was interviewed and said, yes, you're allowed to put your seat back, but it's also nice to be polite and ask the people around you if they mind. Well, what if you ask the person and they say no? Then do you just do it anyway? I don't know. Okay, one more stories from the sky, because this one involves a plane at Houston's Hobby Airport, and they had to ground all flights recently after a private jet departed without permission and then collided with another jet. Yeah, again, in Houston, it happened when a twin-engine jet departed without permission from the William P. Hobby Airport runway, smacked into another twin-engine jet that was landing on the runway. Nobody was hurt. The departing plane was identified as a corporate aircraft model. The arriving was a Cessna business class jet. The two planes clipped their wings as they were moving on to the airfield. The whole airport had to remain under a ground stop while crews worked to move the debris. I don't know, you'd think if you're a pilot, you would know that you have to get permission before you take off. So, yeah. And lastly, see if I can fit this in before we go to Karen. There was a pilot skirmish. This one happened when a pilot was accused of threatening to shoot a captain who tried to divert a flight for a medical emergency. Whew. I don't know. You don't want your pilots fighting. You don't want your air staff fighting, right? Jonathan Dunn, indicted by a Utah grand jury this month, charged with interference with a flight crew stemming from an incident in August of 2022. Dunn apparently used a dangerous weapon to assault and intimidate a crew member, interfering with the crew member's ability to perform their duties. Dunn was the crew's first officer. He told the captain they would be shot multiple times after a disagreement regarding a possible flight diversion for a passenger's medical event. They didn't say which airline was operating the flight, but Delta said the first officer is no longer employed. So it looks like it was Delta. They don't really talk about what happened with him as far as his pilot's license. They don't think that he has a current FAA medical certificate, so maybe like a mental health issue now precludes him from flying, but he was authorized to carry a gun on board the plane due to the TSA's Federal Flight Deck Officer program. He's now been removed from that program. It's pretty scary. Like, we need to be quite sure of who we're letting have guns on planes if you get into a fight over whether or not to divert because someone's having an issue. And that is Stories from the Sky.
This has been Stories from the Sky. The captain has turned off the seatbelt sign, and you are now free to move about the cabin.
I'm Kim McAllister in for Mark Thompson on this Monday afternoon. Mark will be back on Thursday. Tomorrow on the show, we've got some great guests, including Robert Scoble coming on the show. Jim Avila will be here as well. But right now, we have one of our favorite guests, our Monday afternoon discussion about animals. So let's bring in Karen Dawn with Dawn Watch. Hi.
Great to see you, Kim. Hey, great to see you. Loving the show.
Thank you. And thanks for coming on with me. So I don't know I saw a lot of animal stories this week, and I wasn't quite sure which one you were going to pick. What is on the top of your mind right now?
Well, there are so many, but today I wanted to talk about a situation that I'm very pleased to say was on the front page of the Los Angeles Times yesterday. And I'm so pleased about that because, as you know, what Dawn Watch, my organization, tries to do is to encourage the media to do a better job of covering animal issues so that people can make informed choices in line with their own values. I'm not telling people what they should think and how they should eat and what they should do, but asking people just to think about these issues. And it's a lot easier to do that if you've got the information. And the Los Angeles Times, I happen to be a little in love with that paper because it does so often include animals in the general discussion. And yesterday they were on the front page. And the story is so in line with something that Mark and I were talking about last week. And I think you were away last Monday, but we were talking about how the laws so often don't reflect how people generally feel about animals. And in particular, we were talking about the fact that during emergencies, immediately you see people fleeing their homes, not with their televisions and not even with their photograph albums, but with their animals. And then until recently, they would come up against laws that said they couldn't take their animals on the public transport. And that basically killed people who wouldn't leave them. So what we have this week to talk about that was on the cover of the Los Angeles Times yesterday is the situation in Catalina Island. I'm going to ask Tony if he doesn't mind sharing this. I sent him a photo of the article. Okay, I think he's sharing the link, but I had actually attached a photo of the article. It doesn't matter. I can just tell you.
Yeah,
it's here it is, a case of Bambi versus stupid plants. And I could have done without the headline, but the situation is that there are about 1,800 deer living on Catalina Island, who are beloved to the humans living there and beloved to the visitors. But the Catalina Conservancy is a nonprofit organization. And I always tell people, if you're going to donate to environmental nonprofits, make sure that they are animal-friendly environmental nonprofits, because the Catalina Conservancy is certainly putting the plants first. And they plan to gun down from helicopters, Sarah Palin style with the wolves. They plan to gun down the deer on this island because they are an environmental nuisance and that they're denuding the grassland. And this plan is not in line with how most people feel about the deer on Catalina Island. And there are major protests. And I sent a quote over that, Tony, I hope you can pull up, from this wonderful woman who's the spokesperson for the Humane Society on Catalina Island. And She I'm see if Tony has that quote right there. Here we go. I'm gonna put my glasses on so that I can read it out loud.
I think I can read it. I've never heard anyone say that the highlight of their trip to Catalina Island was seeing a plant no one has ever heard of. The mule deer have been on the island for nearly 100 years. Their gentle presence is an integral part of our island's appeal. Where is the dignity in slaughtering these innocent animals, which are so beloved by so many? And that is Diane Stone from the Catalina Island Humane Society. Yeah.
My kind of girl. Yeah. And she represents the thinking of a lot of the residents on this island. And then I sent over another quote I'll ask Tony to pull up from a woman who actually used to be part of this conservancy that is deciding that they're going to gun down all these deer. And you know what, Kim, I'll get you to read her quote again, which starts there on the second line.
During a recent Avalon City Council hearing, Leslie Bear Dinkle, who served on the Conservancy executive team for a decade, put it this way: in the America I know, we, the people of a community, have the right to determine our own fate, and that of a species that has been part of the community for more than 100 years. So clearly they want to save these deer. So is that the plan? Are they now saved, or is this still up for debate?
It's the plan at the moment is that these deer are going to be killed, and they're going to be killed from helicopters, and they're going to let their carcasses land where they lay because they're going to be too hard to cart off, and they're just going to leave them there rotting on the island. And that's because the power over Catalina Island is with this conservancy that is putting the plants first.
I guess
and obviously the deer are not pleased with this decision, but nor are the majority of the people there.
I guess the question is, why would they make this decision? Is Catalina Island completely overrun and packed with these deer? Is it a huge problem?
Well, it is a problem and I'm not. And first, I have to say, I hope your thoughtful viewers and listeners will consider that whenever we have a situation where a species is destroying the environment,
right?
And we talk about, well, should we cull them? I hope people think of the irony of human beings thinking that we need to cull or just kill off another species because it's bad for the environment. Because there is no species on this planet that is worse for this planet than humans are. So, yes, these deer probably aren't good for the Catalina environment overall, but does that mean, okay, we need to kill them all? No. I would suggest, that most people, and again, I'm not trying to tell other people how to think, but when you've got most people saying, what the heck? That was my edited version. Then you've got to come up with better solutions. So without a doubt, like one of the things that the article mentions, and people can look up this article in the Los Angeles Times, they can just Google Catalina deer, or maybe Tony will put it in the chat there because I sent it over. But they mentioned that the deer are denuding the grass, and then other grass grows up, which is not wildfire friendly, so that they're worried that there's going to be wildfires. And so I think, okay, if the deer is stripping grass and it's other grass is growing up, that is more dangerous. So in my front yard here, I was having a problem with a certain type of grass that was growing. So we killed that off and we planted something better. And I'm like, if we valued the life of these deer the way they value their own lives and the way that the people who've lived with them for 100 years on Catalina Island value their lives, then we would plant something better when they strip it. We would do something other than kill them. But that is always the answer. Let's kill them. Now, clearly there's too many of them. That's what contraception's for. And, might it be expensive? Sure. Is it necessarily that easy? No. But if you've got a situation where they're tame, it can be awfully easy to provide the females with contraception. And I'm thinking right now of, I grew up in Australia, as some of you might have worked out by my accent. I used to go to a place called Pebbly Beach, not too far from Sydney. And our version of deer are kangaroos. And they're herbivores, and they're generally not, tame animals. But at Pebbly Beach, because it was a tourist spot and everybody loved the kangaroos, they would actually come up to you and you could hand feed them. They just knew humans were safe and you could hand feed the kangaroos there. Now, in general, we're told do not hand feed wildlife. And I'm not telling anybody, please go hand feed wildlife. The reason we're not supposed to hand feed wildlife is because they're always in danger of being shot. And if you make them tame, they'll come near people.
Yeah, but we don't want them to like humans. It's bad for them to like us. Yeah.
Right. But that makes me sad because you have a situation like deer, they're not generally dangerous to people. And the fact that we have to protect them from us when most of us, grew up on Snow White and would really love as adults to have we love animals. That's why we lock them up in prisons we call zoos, because we love being close to them. We love looking at them. And I think so many people would like to see a situation where these deer were so tame that we could hand feed them contraceptives. There is always a better way. And certainly we can put contraceptives on our rose bushes. I mean, there is a better way than just slaughtering these 1,800 or so deer that the human population adore, that the tourists adore. As Diane Stone said, people don't go to Cabot Island to look at the plants.
Yeah. Well, it's a story we'll be following, and to see whether they come up with some alternatives or whether they enact this plan to get rid of the deer in a manner that is really not palatable to people who love animals. But Karen, thank you for bringing the story to our attention today and letting people know about it. You're awesome.
Thank you for providing this platform to let people know about what's going on with animals in the world.
That is your website, Dawn Watch, where you have a newsletter where you talk about animal issues, animal rights, and the stories in the media that you think people ought to be aware of. So Dawn Watch, you can check that out and subscribe to that newsletter. Thank you, Karen, for being here. I'll see you again next Monday.
Lovely to see you.
Bye. And that, my friends, is the Mark Thompson Show. Some people to thank today that have been incredibly lovely and joined us with the super sticker. Harry's starting us off. You are so kind, Harry. You always just hit me right in the heart. Thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. So grateful. Also, text Stan for $10. Mark should make you an army helmet with some branches on it, Kim. Great job holding down the fort. I'll take that helmet. I might actually need it. Thank you, Tex. And Pinky with $1 a day. So grateful for all of your assistance in keeping the show up and running, your Patreon contributions, your PayPal contributions as well. You'll see the names of all of our supporters at the end of the show. Again, tomorrow we've got Jim Avila coming in to talk about his new piece. We'll talk to Robert Scoble about AI. Some other guests lined up for you as well. Turi Ryder will be here. She's a former KGO talk show host and so much fun.
Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye everybody. We'll see you tomorrow on the Mark Thompson Show, and stick with us next for the After Party Live. Bye-bye.